Baby saw a German shepherd trapped in a shipping container full of toys. What happened next was stunning. What happened next will shock you beyond belief. The story you're about to listen to will change everything you thought you knew about the connection between humans and animals. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from. This tale needs to be heard by everyone. 5-year-old Marcus had always been different. While other children his age chattered endlessly about cartoons and playground games, Marcus barely spoke at all. His words came in whispers, single syllables that his father Ryan had to strain to hear. The doctors called it selective mutism, but Ryan knew it was something deeper. Marcus saw the world differently, felt things more intensely than other kids. On that cold December morning, Ryan had no idea that everything was about to change forever. The community donation center buzzed with holiday volunteers, their voices mixing with the sound of cardboard boxes being stacked and sorted. Ryan had been volunteering there for 3 years now, ever since Marcus's mother had left them both behind. It gave him purpose, and more importantly, it gave Marcus a safe place to play while Ryan worked. "Stay close, buddy," Ryan called out as he hefted another box of winter coats onto the sorting table. Marcus nodded silently, his small hands clutching a worn teddy bear that never left his side. The donation center sat next to an old storage yard, separated only by a chain-link fence. Shipping containers of various sizes lined the yard like metal dominoes, some rusted and abandoned, others freshly painted and ready for transport. Ryan had always told Marcus to stay away from the fence, but children have a way of finding adventure in the most unexpected places. Marcus wandered toward the fence while his father sorted through donations. Something had caught his eye. A shipping container that stood slightly apart from the others, its door hanging open just enough to reveal darkness inside. The container shouldn't have been open. All the others were sealed tight. A faint sound drifted from inside the container. Marcus pressed his face against the cold metal of the fence, his breath forming small clouds in the winter air. The sound came again. Soft, almost like crying, but not quite human. Marcus had never climbed a fence before, but something pulled him forward. His small fingers found the gaps in the chain link, and he began to climb. The metal was cold against his skin, but he didn't stop. Whatever was making that sound needed help. The container loomed larger as Marcus approached it. Toys spilled out from the opening. Teddy bears, action figures, dolls with their plastic eyes staring at nothing. But there was something else mixed in with the toys, something that didn't belong. Marcus pushed the container door open wider, and sunlight streamed into the dark space. What he saw inside made his heart stop. SC German Shepherd lay among the toys, barely moving. The dog's fur was matted and dirty, and Marcus could see ribs showing through his coat. The animal's eyes were closed, but his chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Teddy bears and stuffed animals surrounded him like a soft prison, as if someone had tried to bury him alive in childhood comfort. Marcus had never seen anything so heartbreaking. The dog was beautiful, even in his weakened state. His black and tan coat told stories of strength and loyalty, but now he looked broken, forgotten. "Hello," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible even to himself. The dog's eyes fluttered open. They were the deepest brown Marcus had ever seen, filled with pain, but also with something else. Recognition, as if the dog had been waiting for him specifically. Marcus climbed into the container, his small body moving carefully between the scattered toys. The dog didn't growl or show any signs of aggression. Instead, he tried to lift his head, as if acknowledging Marcus's presence. "It's okay," Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. "I'm here now." The dog's tail gave the faintest wag. Marcus reached out slowly, letting the animal smell his hand before gently stroking the matted fur. The dog's eyes closed again, but this time in contentment rather than pain. Marcus began arranging the toys around the dog more carefully, creating a softer nest. He worked in silence, his small hands moving with surprising gentleness. The dog watched him work, and Marcus felt something he had never experienced before, a connection that went beyond words. "Marcus!" Ryan's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. "Marcus, where are you?" Panic filled Ryan's voice as he realized his son was nowhere to be found. He had been so focused on sorting donations that he hadn't noticed Marcus wandering away. Now, as he searched the donation center, calling his son's name with increasing desperation, every parent's worst nightmare began to unfold in his mind. "Has anyone seen my son?" Ryan asked the other volunteers, his voice tight with worry. "He's 5, blonde hair, wearing a red jacket." The volunteers joined the search, spreading out across the center and the surrounding area. Ryan's heart pounded as he checked every corner, every hiding spot where a curious child might explore. "Over here!" called Maria, one of the regular volunteers. She was pointing toward the storage yard. "The fence has been disturbed. Look at the bottom. Someone small climbed over." Ryan's blood ran cold. He sprinted toward the fence, his eyes scanning the storage yard for any sign of Marcus. The shipping containers looked like metal monsters in the afternoon light, each one a potential danger. "Marcus!" Ryan shouted, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "Marcus, answer me!" A small voice drifted from one of the containers. "Dad?" Ryan followed the sound to an open container filled with toys. What he saw inside made him freeze. Marcus was sitting, cross-legged next to a German shepherd, gently stroking the animal's head. The dog looked weak and injured, but there was something in its eyes, a protective alertness that focused entirely on Marcus. "Son, get away from that dog," Ryan said carefully, trying to keep his voice calm. "He might be dangerous." Marcus looked up at his father, and Ryan saw something that stopped him cold. His son's eyes were bright and focused in a way they had never been before. Marcus was fully present, fully engaged, more alive than Ryan had ever seen him. "He's not dangerous, Dad," Marcus said clearly, his words coming out in complete sentences for the first time in months. "He's hurt. Someone left him here to die." The dog lifted his head slightly, looking at Ryan with those deep brown eyes. There was no aggression, no fear, only exhaustion and a strange kind of acceptance. But what struck Ryan most was the way the dog positioned himself, even in his weakened state, as if he was trying to protect Marcus. "Don't hurt him," Marcus said, his voice carrying a strength that Ryan had never heard before. "He's mine now." Ryan stared at his son in shock. Marcus had spoken more words in the last 5 minutes than he had in the previous month. The change was so dramatic, so sudden, that Ryan wondered if he was dreaming. "Okay, buddy," Ryan said softly, climbing into the container. "Let's help him together." As Ryan moved closer, he could see the full extent of the dog's condition. The animal was severely dehydrated and underweight, but there was something else, something that made Ryan's blood run cold. Around the dog's neck was a collar unlike any he had ever seen. It was made of metal, with strange markings and what looked like electronic components built into it. "What kind of collar is that?" Ryan muttered, reaching out to examine it more closely. The dog flinched slightly at Ryan's touch, but Marcus placed a small hand on the animal's head, and the dog immediately relaxed. "It's okay," Marcus whispered to the dog. "He's good. He's my dad." Ryan's hands shook as he examined the collar. The metal was warm to the touch, and tiny lights blinked in patterns he didn't recognize. Numbers and letters were etched into the surface, but they looked more like code than any standard identification. "We need to get him to a vet," Ryan said, his mind racing. "Can you help me carry him?" Marcus nodded eagerly, positioning himself at the dog's head, while Ryan carefully lifted the animal's hindquarters. The dog was heavier than he looked, but he didn't struggle. Instead, he seemed to understand that they were trying to help. As they carried the dog toward Ryan's truck, Marcus kept up a steady stream of whispered encouragement. "You're going to be okay," he said. "We're going to take care of you. You're safe now." Ryan couldn't believe what he was hearing. His son, who had barely spoken in months, was now talking to this strange dog as if they had known each other forever. The transformation was so complete, so sudden, that it felt almost miraculous. They placed the dog carefully in the back of Ryan's truck, with Marcus insisting on sitting beside him for the entire drive to the veterinary clinic. The dog's breathing was shallow but steady, and he kept his eyes fixed on Marcus throughout the journey. Dr. Sarah Martinez had been practicing veterinary medicine for 15 years, but she had never seen anything quite like the dog Ryan and Marcus brought in that afternoon. The animal was clearly in distress, but there was something else about him, an intelligence and awareness that went beyond typical canine behavior. He's severely dehydrated, Dr. Martinez explained as she examined the dog. Probably hasn't had food or water in days. But what concerns me more is this collar. I've never seen anything like it. She ran her hands over the metal device, frowning at the electronic components. This isn't a standard identification collar. It looks almost medical, or maybe military. See these ports here? They're designed to interface with something. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean, interface? I mean, this collar was designed to transmit and receive data, Dr. Martinez said, her voice growing more serious. The question is, what kind of data and why? Marcus, who had been sitting quietly beside the examination table, suddenly spoke up. His name is Storm, he said with absolute certainty. Both adults turned to look at him in surprise. How do you know that? Ryan asked. Marcus shrugged, his small hand still stroking the dog's head. He told me. Dr. Martinez and Ryan exchanged glances. The boy was clearly attached to the animal, but the idea that the dog had somehow communicated his name seemed impossible. Well, Storm it is then, Doctor, Martinez said gently. Let's get him stabilized first, and then we'll figure out what to do about that collar. As she worked, inserting an IV line and administering fluids, the dog, Storm, never took his eyes off Marcus. The connection between them was so strong it was almost visible, like an invisible thread binding them together. I've never seen anything like this, Dr. Martinez murmured to Ryan. The way that dog responds to your son is extraordinary. It's like they're communicating on a level beyond what we can understand. Ryan nodded, watching his son talk softly to Storm. Marcus was more animated, more present than he had been in years. Whatever was happening between them, it was changing Marcus in ways that Ryan had never thought possible. Doctor, Ryan said quietly, I need to ask you something. This collar, the way Storm was found, do you think someone was experimenting on him? Dr. Martinez's expression grew grave. I think we need to be very careful, she said. This kind of technology doesn't just appear on stray dogs. Someone put that collar on him for a reason, and if they're looking for him, they might come looking here, as if summoned by her words. The clinic's front door chimed, and a man in a dark suit walked in. He was tall and thin, with cold eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Excuse me, he said, his voice smooth and professional. I'm looking for a German Shepherd that may have been brought in today, large, black and tan, wearing a special collar. Dr. Martinez's hand instinctively moved to her phone. I'm sorry, but we don't discuss our patients with unauthorized individuals. Are you the owner? The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. In a manner of speaking, yes. The animal is the property of the United States government. I'm here to collect him. Ryan felt his blood turn to ice. He looked through the window of the examination room, where Marcus was still sitting with Storm, completely unaware of the danger that had just walked through the door. I'm going to need to see some identification, Dr. Martinez said firmly. The man reached into his jacket, and Ryan's heart stopped. But instead of a weapon, he produced a badge and official-looking papers. Agent Coleman, Department of Defense, he said. The animal is classified as government property. I'm authorized to retrieve him immediately. Dr. Martinez looked at the papers, her frown deepening. These documents are vague. They don't specify what kind of government property or under what authority you're claiming ownership. Agent Coleman's smile faded. Ma'am, I don't think you understand the seriousness of this situation. That animal is dangerous. He's been exposed to classified materials and procedures. For your own safety and the safety of everyone in this clinic, I need you to surrender him immediately. Ryan's mind raced. Everything about this situation felt wrong. The mysterious collar, the way Storm had been abandoned in that container, and now this government agent demanding custody. It all pointed to something much darker than a simple case of animal abandonment. I need to make a phone call, Doctor, Martinez said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. Agent Coleman's expression hardened. I'm afraid that won't be possible. This is a matter of national security. At that moment, Marcus appeared in the doorway of the examination room, his small hand still holding Storm's leash. The dog stood beside him, weak but alert, his eyes fixed on Agent Coleman with unmistakable recognition and fear. Dad, Marcus said, his voice carrying an odd authority that Ryan had never heard before. This man is bad. Storm is scared of him. Agent Coleman's eyes widened as he saw the dog. "There he is," he said, taking a step forward. "Sir, I need you to step away from the animal immediately." But Storm did something unexpected. Despite his weakness, despite the IV still attached to his leg, he stepped in front of Marcus, his body language clearly protective. A low growl rumbled in his chest, and his hackles rose. "He's not going anywhere," Marcus said, his voice clear and strong. "He's staying with me." Agent Coleman reached for something inside his jacket again, but this time Dr. Martinez was ready. She had already pressed the silent alarm that would alert the police, and her phone was in her hand, recording everything. "I think you should leave," she said firmly. "If you want to claim this animal, you'll need to go through proper legal channels." Agent Coleman looked around the room, calculating his options. 3 civilians, one of them a child, and a dog that was clearly bonded to the boy. Too many witnesses, too much potential for things to go wrong. "This isn't over," he said, his voice cold with barely contained frustration. "That animal is government property, and I will be back with the proper authorities." He turned and walked out of the clinic, leaving behind a tension so thick it was almost suffocating. Ryan immediately went to Marcus, kneeling down to his son's level. "Are you okay, buddy?" Marcus nodded, but his eyes were serious beyond his years. "He's been looking for Storm," he said. "Storm has been hiding for a long time." Dr. Martinez stared at the boy in amazement. "Marcus, how do you know that?" Marcus looked up at her with those bright, focused eyes. "Storm tells me things," he said simply. "Not with words, with feelings. He's been running from bad people who hurt him." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. His son was describing something that should have been impossible, but after everything that had happened today, Ryan was beginning to believe that impossible might be relative. "Doctor," Ryan said quietly, "I think we need to remove that collar. Whatever it is, whatever it does, it's not safe for Storm to keep wearing it." Dr. Martinez nodded. "I agree, but first, I think we need to document everything. If that man comes back with legal authority, we need to be prepared." As they worked to remove the collar, using careful precision to avoid damaging whatever technology was embedded in it, Marcus stayed close to Storm, his small hand providing comfort and reassurance. The collar came off with a soft electronic whine, and immediately Storm seemed to relax, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. But what they found underneath the collar made everyone in the room gasp. Embedded in Storm's neck, just below where the collar had been, was a small metal disc about the size of a quarter. It was clearly surgical in origin, placed there with precision and care. "What is that?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Martinez examined it closely with a magnifying glass. "It's some kind of implant," she said. "Biocompatible metal, probably titanium. And look at these markings. They're not random. This is technology, advanced technology." Marcus reached out and gently touched the area around the implant. Storm flinched slightly, but then relaxed under the boy's touch. "It hurts him," Marcus said softly. "It's been hurting him for a long time, but it also helps him understand things, like me." Ryan stared at his son in amazement. "What do you mean, like you?" Marcus looked up at his father, and Ryan saw something in his son's eyes that made his heart race. Intelligence, awareness, and something else. Something that seemed almost otherworldly. "I understand him, Dad," Marcus said. "And he understands me. We're the same now." Before Ryan could ask what that meant, the clinic's lights flickered, and every electronic device in the room, the monitors, the computers, even Dr. Martinez's phone, briefly went dead. Then, just as suddenly, everything came back online. But Marcus was different. His eyes were brighter, more focused. And when he looked at Storm, the dog's tail wagged with an enthusiasm that seemed impossible given his condition just moments before. "What just happened?" Dr. Martinez asked, her voice filled with wonder and concern. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in years, it was a complete, joyful expression. "We're connected now," he said. "Storm and me, we can help each other." Ryan felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Whatever had happened to his son, whatever Storm was, and wherever he had come from, their lives would never be the same again. And somewhere in the distance, Agent Coleman was making phone calls, reporting his failure to retrieve the asset, and receiving new orders that would change everything for Ryan, Marcus, and Storm. The real story was just beginning. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed listening to the sounds coming from Marcus's room, not the usual silence that had become so familiar, but actual conversation. Marcus was talking to Storm, and somehow, impossibly, it seemed like Storm was responding. "I know you're scared," Marcus's voice drifted through the thin walls. "But we're safe here. My dad is good. He won't let anyone hurt us." Ryan crept to his son's bedroom door, which was slightly open. What he saw inside made his breath catch. Marcus was sitting on his bed, cross-legged, with Storm lying beside him. The dog's head was resting on Marcus's lap, and both of them seemed completely at peace. But it was more than that. There was an energy between them, a visible connection that Ryan couldn't explain. Sometimes Marcus would tilt his head slightly, as if listening to something Ryan couldn't hear. Then he would nod and respond, carrying on what appeared to be a two-way conversation. "The bad man today," Marcus said softly. "He's not the only one, is he?" Storm's ears perked up, and he lifted his head to look directly at Marcus. The dog's eyes seemed to convey something, and Marcus nodded gravely. "I know," Marcus said. "They're coming back, but we'll be ready." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. His 5-year-old son was discussing strategy with a dog, as if they were old friends planning for battle. The transformation in Marcus was so complete, so sudden, that Ryan wondered if he was losing his mind. The next morning brought new revelations. Dr. Martinez called early, her voice tight with urgency. "Ryan, you need to come to the clinic immediately," she said. "I've been researching Storm's implant all night, and what I've found is disturbing." Ryan left Marcus with their neighbor, Mrs. Chen, though he noticed his son's reluctance to be separated from Storm. The dog seemed equally distressed, whimpering softly as Ryan prepared to leave. "I'll be back soon," Ryan promised, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to Marcus or Storm. At the clinic, Dr. Martinez looked like she hadn't slept. Her usually neat appearance was disheveled, and her eyes were red from staring at computer screens. "I ran the serial numbers from Storm's collar and implant through every database I could access," she said, leading Ryan to her office. "What I found scared me enough to call my brother." She pulled up a chair beside her desk. "My brother Jake works for the Department of Defense. Not in any classified capacity, just IT support, but he has access to personnel directories and basic project information." Ryan sat down, his stomach already churning with dread. "The collar and implant are part of something called Project Mindbridge," Dr. Martinez continued. "It was a classified military program that was supposedly shut down 3 years ago." "What kind of program?" Ryan asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "Neurological enhancement for military working dogs," she said grimly. The goal was to create a direct neural link between handlers and their animals. Perfect communication, shared experiences, enhanced intuition, and problem-solving abilities. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. "That's impossible." "That's what I thought too, Doctor," Martinez said. "But according to Jake's research, they made significant progress before the program was terminated. The problem was that the technology was too advanced, too dangerous. Several test subjects, both human and canine, suffered severe psychological trauma." She pulled out a folder filled with printed documents. Storm wasn't just any test subject, Ryan. According to these files, he was the most successful case they had. The neural link worked perfectly, but there was one problem. What problem? Storm became too empathetic. He couldn't be trained for combat because he felt everything his handler felt, and his handler felt everything Storm felt. The emotional connection was so strong that it became debilitating for both of them. Ryan's mind raced back to the previous evening, to Marcus and Storm's apparent conversation. What happened to his handler? Dr. Martinez's expression grew even more serious. That's where it gets complicated. The handler was a young soldier named Alex Morrison. According to the files, he became so bonded with Storm that he refused to participate in further testing. He went AWOL, taking Storm with him. And then, Morrison was found dead in a car accident 6 months later. Storm disappeared. Ryan felt sick. So Storm has been on his own for almost 3 years? It appears that way. But Ryan, there's something else. Something that might explain what's happening with Marcus. She pulled out another document, this one heavily redacted with black ink. The neural link technology wasn't just about communication. It was designed to enhance cognitive abilities in both the handler and the animal. Improved memory, faster processing, enhanced pattern recognition. You're saying Storm is smarter than a normal dog? I'm saying Storm's brain has been artificially enhanced to operate on a level closer to human intelligence. And if Marcus is somehow connecting with him? Ryan's blood turned to ice. You think Marcus is being affected by the technology? I think we need to be very careful, Doctor, Martinez said. This technology was classified for a reason. If it's active, if it's somehow affecting Marcus, we're dealing with something far beyond our understanding. Before Ryan could respond, Dr. Martinez's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and paled. It's my brother, she said, answering the call. Jake? What's wrong? Ryan watched her expression change from concern to fear as she listened to whatever Jake was telling her. Are you sure? She asked. How many people are we talking about? She hung up and turned to Ryan with panic in her eyes. Jake says there's been unusual activity in the military databases. Someone has been accessing files related to Project Mindbridge, and there's chatter about a recovery operation being authorized. What kind of recovery operation? The kind where they don't take no for an answer, Dr. Martinez said grimly. Ryan, you need to get Marcus and Storm out of town, now. Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. Strange men in suits asking about you and Marcus. We left through the back door. Meet us at the park. They're already here, Ryan said, showing Dr. Martinez the text. They're looking for us. Dr. Martinez grabbed her keys and a bag she had apparently prepared. I know someone who can help. A friend of mine who used to work with military K-9 units. She lives in a cabin about 2 hours north of here. They rushed out of the clinic, but as they reached the parking lot, Ryan spotted 2 black SUVs parked across the street. Men in dark suits were watching the clinic, and one of them was talking into a radio. Back door, Dr. Martinez whispered, leading Ryan through the clinic's rear exit. They reached Ryan's truck just as the men from the SUVs began moving toward the clinic's front entrance. Ryan's hands shook as he started the engine, but they managed to slip away unnoticed. The park where Mrs. Chen had taken Marcus and Storm was on the other side of town, but Ryan drove carefully, avoiding main roads and watching constantly for signs of pursuit. His phone rang twice, both times showing unknown numbers, but he didn't answer. When they reached the park, Ryan spotted Mrs. Chen's car parked near the playground. Marcus and Storm were sitting on a bench together, and even from a distance, Ryan could see that something had changed about his son. Marcus looked older somehow, more alert and aware. When he saw Ryan approaching, he stood up and waved, but his expression was serious. Dad, we need to leave, Marcus said as soon as Ryan was within earshot. The bad men are coming. Storm says they have machines that can track him. Mrs. Chen looked confused and concerned. I don't understand what's happening, she said. Marcus has been saying the strangest things, and that dog, it's like he understands every word. Dr. Martinez knelt down to Marcus's level. Marcus, can you tell me what Storm is saying about the machines? Marcus tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something only he could hear. He says they put something in his head that lets them find him, but it's been quiet for a long time because he learned how to hide from it. Hide from it how? Dr. Martinez asked. By being very still inside his mind, Marcus said. But when we became friends, when we connected, it woke up again. Now they can find us. Ryan felt a chill of terror. Marcus, how do you know all this? Marcus looked up at his father with those bright, intelligent eyes. Storm shows me pictures in my head, Dad. I can see his memories. I can feel what he feels. Dr. Martinez and Ryan exchanged glances. This was far beyond anything they had imagined. We need to get to my friend's cabin, Dr. Martinez said. She'll know what to do. As they prepared to leave, Storm suddenly became agitated. He stood up, his hackles rising, and began looking around the park with obvious distress. They're here, Marcus said quietly. Storm can feel them coming. Sure enough, the distinctive sound of multiple vehicles approaching at high speed reached their ears. Black SUVs were converging on the park from 3 different directions. Run, Dr. Martinez said urgently. Get to the woods. I'll try to delay them. Ryan grabbed Marcus's hand, and Storm immediately fell into step beside them. They ran toward the tree line at the edge of the park, but the SUVs were moving fast. Stop! A voice called out behind them. This is Agent Coleman. You are interfering with a federal investigation. Ryan didn't look back. He and Marcus crashed through the underbrush, following a hiking trail that led deeper into the woods. Storm moved beside them, with surprising grace despite his recent ordeal, his enhanced senses clearly guiding them along the safest path. Behind them, they could hear shouting and the sound of multiple people giving chase, but the woods were thick, and Ryan knew these trails from years of hiking with Marcus when he was younger. "This way," Marcus said suddenly, tugging his father toward a path that Ryan didn't recognize. "Storm knows a better way." Ryan hesitated for a moment, then decided to trust his son's mysterious connection with the dog. They followed Storm as he led them through dense undergrowth, across a small stream, and up a steep hillside. The sounds of pursuit grew fainter, but Ryan knew they couldn't run forever. His phone had service, and he quickly sent a text to Dr. Martinez. "Safe for now, heading north to your friend's cabin." Her reply came quickly. "Delayed them, but not for long. Address is 1247 Pine Ridge Road. Ask for Elena. Tell her Sarah sent you." As they hiked through the woods, Marcus kept up an ongoing conversation with Storm, their communication now so natural that Ryan was beginning to accept it as reality. "Storm says there's a road ahead," Marcus reported. "But we need to be careful. The bad men have other dogs, tracking dogs, and they're good at their job." "How does Storm know about the other dogs?" Ryan asked. "He used to work with them," Marcus said matter-of-factly. "Before he became special, before they hurt him." They reached the road just as the sun was beginning to set. Ryan's truck was back at the park, probably surrounded by federal agents by now. They needed another way to travel. There, Marcus pointed to a small gas station about a quarter-mile down the road. "We can call someone from there." But as they approached the gas station, Storm suddenly stopped, his body tense with alertness. "What is it?" Ryan asked. Marcus tilted his head, listening to whatever Storm was communicating. "There's someone watching the gas station, someone who's been waiting for us." Ryan felt his heart sink. How had they known to watch this place? "The implant," Marcus said, as if reading his father's thoughts. "They can track it, but only when Storm uses his special abilities. Every time he talks to me, they get closer." "Then we need to find another way," Ryan said. That's when they heard the sound of an approaching motorcycle. A woman on a dirt bike was coming down the road, and she slowed as she approached them. "Are you Ryan?" she called out, pulling off her helmet to reveal short gray hair and intense blue eyes. "Depends on who's asking," Ryan said cautiously. "I'm Elena Rodriguez," she said. "Sarah Martinez sent me. She said you might need help." Ryan felt a wave of relief, but Storm remained tense, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. "We need to go," Marcus said urgently. "Now, they found us." Elena looked at the boy with surprise, then at Storm, and her expression changed to one of recognition and concern. "You're the Mine Bridge dog," she said quietly. "I heard they were all destroyed." "Storm is special," Marcus said. "He's my friend." Elena's eyes widened as she watched the interaction between the boy and the dog. "This is impossible," she muttered. "The neural link technology, it was never tested on children." "It's not being tested," Marcus said simply. "It's just happening." The sound of vehicles approaching made the decision for them. Elena gestured for Ryan and Marcus to climb onto the motorcycle behind her. "What about Storm?" Ryan asked. "He can keep up," Elena said. "Trust me, that dog is faster than he looks." As they rode away from the gas station, Ryan looked back to see Storm running alongside them with impossible speed and endurance. The dog moved like a shadow, his enhanced physiology allowing him to match the motorcycle's pace. But what worried Ryan most was what Marcus had said about the implant. Every time Storm used his abilities, every time he communicated with Marcus, they were essentially sending a signal to their pursuers. They were connected now, Marcus and Storm, but that connection might be the very thing that destroyed them all. Behind them, the black SUVs reached the gas station, and Agent Coleman stepped out, his face grim with determination. He spoke into his radio, his voice carrying across the evening air. "Target acquired. The boy is exhibiting signs of neural link activation. Authorize immediate extraction protocols." The hunt was intensifying, and Ryan realized they were no longer just running from the government. They were running from something much more dangerous. Technology that had bonded his son to a dog in ways that science was only beginning to understand. And somewhere in the distance, other forces were mobilizing, drawn by the unique neural signature that Marcus and Storm were broadcasting every time they communicated. The real danger was just beginning to reveal itself. Elena's cabin sat nestled in a valley between two forested hills, invisible from any main road. The motorcycle's engine echoed off the trees as they approached, and Ryan could see why Dr. Martinez had suggested this place as a safe haven. It was completely isolated, accessible only by a narrow dirt road that wound through dense forest. Storm had kept pace with the motorcycle for the entire 2-hour journey, his enhanced physiology allowing him to run at speeds that should have been impossible for any normal dog. When Elena finally stopped in front of the cabin, Storm wasn't even breathing hard. "That's not natural," Elena muttered, watching Storm with a mixture of fascination and concern. The enhancement protocols were supposed to improve cognitive function, not physical capabilities. Marcus slid off the motorcycle and immediately went to Storm's side. "He says his whole body feels different now," Marcus translated. "Stronger, faster, but also more sensitive to everything around him." Elena stared at the boy in amazement. "You can really understand him? Can't you?" Marcus asked innocently. Storm is very loud in his thoughts. Ryan felt a chill at his son's words. The connection between Marcus and Storm was growing stronger, and Ryan was beginning to understand that whatever was happening to them was far beyond anything the original Project Mindbridge had intended. Elena led them inside the cabin, which was surprisingly well equipped despite its remote location. Military-grade communication equipment sat on a desk near the window, and Ryan noticed weapons mounted on the walls. "I worked with K9 units for 12 years, Elena explained, noticing Ryan's examination of the equipment. "After I retired, I started helping animals who had been mistreated by various government programs." "How many programs are there?" Ryan asked. Elena's expression darkened. "More than you want to know. Project Mindbridge was just one of several attempts to weaponize animals. Most of them were shut down after ethical violations, but the technology doesn't just disappear." She gestured for them to sit down while she made coffee. "The problem with Mindbridge wasn't that it didn't work. The problem was that it worked too well." Marcus was sitting cross-legged on the floor next to Storm, one hand resting on the dog's head. "Elena," he said suddenly, his voice carrying an odd formality for a 5-year-old. "Storm wants to know if you worked with his first handler." Elena dropped the coffee mug she was holding. It shattered on the kitchen floor, but she didn't seem to notice. "What did you say?" "Alex Morrison," Marcus said, though Ryan was certain his son had never heard that name before today. "Storm misses him very much. He says you have kind eyes like Alex did." Elena's face went pale. She slowly approached Marcus and Storm, her hands shaking slightly. "I did know Alex," she said quietly. "He was one of my trainees before he was selected for Mindbridge. How could Storm possibly remember me?" Marcus tilted his head, listening to something only he could hear. "He says you taught Alex how to trust his instincts. You told him that the best handlers listen with their hearts, not just their minds." Elena sat down heavily in a chair, staring at Storm in disbelief. "Those were my exact words. I said them to Alex during his first week of training, more than 4 years ago." "Storm remembers everything," Marcus said simply. "The implant made his memory perfect, but it also made the sadness perfect too." Storm lifted his head and looked directly at Elena. For a moment, the intelligence in his eyes was so human-like that Ryan felt his breath catch. "My God," Elena whispered. "What did they do to you?" Marcus stood up and walked over to Elena, his small hand reaching out to take hers. "Storm says he's not the same dog he was before. The bad men changed him into something new, but he's not angry about it anymore." "Why not?" Elena asked. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since this whole ordeal began, it was a completely joyful expression. "Because now he has me, and I have him. We're not alone anymore." Elena looked between Marcus and Storm, and Ryan could see her mind working to process what she was witnessing. "The neural link," she said slowly. "It's not just allowing communication, it's creating a shared consciousness." "What does that mean?" Ryan asked, though he was afraid he already knew. "It means Marcus and Storm aren't just communicating," Elena said. "They're becoming something new, something that's part human and part enhanced canine." Before Ryan could ask what that meant for his son's future, Storm suddenly became alert. He stood up, his ears perked, and began moving toward the window. "Someone's coming," Marcus said, his voice instantly serious. "Multiple vehicles. They found us." Elena immediately went to her communication equipment and began flipping switches. "How is that possible? This location isn't in any database." Marcus walked over to Storm and placed both hands on the dog's head. For a moment, both of them became perfectly still, as if they were sharing some kind of intense mental connection. "They're tracking the neural link," Marcus said when he opened his eyes. "Every time Storm and I connect, we send out a signal. The bad men have machines that can follow it." Elena's face went grim. "The government has been developing tracking technology for neural implants for years. If they've miniaturized it enough to deploy in the field..." The sound of vehicles approaching through the forest confirmed their worst fears. Through the cabin's windows, Ryan could see headlights moving between the trees. "How many?" Elena asked, already moving to secure weapons from a locked cabinet. Marcus and Storm shared another moment of connection. 6 trucks, Marcus reported. "About 30 people. They have dogs with them, but the dogs are scared. They don't want to hunt Storm." Elena handed Ryan a shotgun and kept a rifle for herself. "There's a basement entrance that leads to a tunnel," she said. "It comes out about half a mile away near where I keep my ATV." "What about you?" Ryan asked. "Someone needs to slow them down," Elena said grimly. "Besides, I've been waiting for a chance to have words with Agent Coleman." The vehicles were getting closer, and Ryan could hear shouting and the barking of tracking dogs. But as Marcus had predicted, the barking sounded more distressed than aggressive. "The other dogs know Storm is special," Marcus explained. "They don't understand what he's become, but they know he's not their enemy." Elena led them to a hidden door in the kitchen floor. The basement below was small but well organized, with supplies and equipment stored along the walls. At the far end, a narrow tunnel disappeared into darkness. "Follow the tunnel until you reach the ATV," Elena said. "There's a map in the glove compartment that will show you 3 different safe houses. Pick one and stay there until you hear from me." "How will we hear from you?" Ryan asked. Elena looked at Marcus and Storm, who were standing close together, their connection so obvious it was like a visible bond. "Something tells me that won't be a problem." The sound of doors slamming echoed through the forest. Agent Coleman's voice carried through the trees, amplified by a megaphone. "This is Agent Coleman with the Department of Defense. You are harboring stolen government property. Surrender the animal immediately, and no one will be harmed." Elena snorted. "Like hell!" She ushered Ryan, Marcus, and Storm into the tunnel. "Go, and remember, whatever happens, don't let them separate you from Storm. The neural link is still developing, and if it's interrupted now, it could cause permanent damage to both of them." Ryan felt a spike of terror. "What kind of damage?" "The kind where Marcus might never be the same again," Elena said grimly. They entered the tunnel just as the sound of splintering wood indicated that Coleman's men had reached the cabin. The tunnel was narrow and dark, lit only by small LED strips along the walls. Ryan led the way with a flashlight Elena had given him, while Marcus and Storm followed close behind. "Dad," Marcus said as they moved through the tunnel, "Storm is showing me things, memories from the other dogs in the program." "What kind of memories?" Ryan asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Sad ones," Marcus said quietly. "Most of the dogs didn't survive the process. The ones that did were changed. Some of them forgot how to be dogs. They became something else, something that didn't fit anywhere." Ryan felt sick. "Is that what's happening to Storm?" "No," Marcus said with surprising confidence. "Storm is different because he chose to connect with me. The other dogs had the connection forced on them with their handlers. But Storm and I found each other. That makes us stronger." They reached the end of the tunnel, which opened into a small cave carved into the hillside. Elena's ATV was parked just outside, camouflaged with branches and netting. As Ryan started the ATV, he could hear gunfire echoing from the direction of the cabin. His heart clenched with worry for Elena, but Marcus placed a small hand on his arm. "She's okay," Marcus said. "Storm can sense her. She's giving them a fight they weren't expecting." They drove through the forest for 20 minutes before reaching a paved road. Ryan consulted Elena's map and chose the safe house that was farthest from their current location, an abandoned ranger station deep in the national forest. But as they traveled, Ryan began to notice something disturbing about Marcus. His son was becoming more and more focused on Storm, their connection deepening with each passing hour. Marcus's personality was changing, becoming more confident and assertive, but also more alien. "Marcus," Ryan said during a rest stop, "I need you to tell me the truth. How much of what you're thinking is actually Storm's thoughts?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I don't know anymore," he said finally. "It's hard to tell where I end and Storm begins. But Dad, it doesn't hurt. It feels complete." Ryan felt a chill of fear. His son was disappearing into this connection, becoming something that wasn't entirely human, but at the same time, Marcus was more alive, more engaged, more himself than he had ever been. The abandoned ranger station sat in a clearing surrounded by tall pine trees. The building was small but sturdy, with solar panels on the roof and a well-maintained generator. Elena had clearly prepared this place for exactly this type of emergency. As they settled in for the night, Storm exhibited behavior that was becoming increasingly unsettling. He moved around the cabin with purpose, checking windows and doors like a human security expert. His intelligence was clearly far beyond anything a normal dog could possess, even an enhanced one. "Storm says we're safe here for now," Marcus reported, "but the bad men are getting better at tracking us. They have new equipment that can follow the neural link even when we're trying to hide it." "What kind of equipment?" Ryan asked. Marcus and Storm shared one of their intense connection moments. "Satellites," Marcus said when they broke contact. "They've launched special satellites that can detect neural link activity from space." Ryan felt his blood turn to ice. "How does Storm know about satellites?" "Because he's not just a dog anymore, Dad," Marcus said matter-of-factly. "The implant gave him access to things, knowledge, memories, data streams. He knows things that the government doesn't want anyone to know." That night, Ryan lay awake listening to Marcus and Storm communicate through whispers and what sounded like wordless understanding. The transformation in his son was accelerating, and Ryan was beginning to realize that even if they escaped from Agent Coleman and his team, their lives would never be normal again. Around midnight, Storm suddenly became agitated. He moved to the window and began a low, continuous growl that raised the hair on Ryan's arms. "What is it?" Ryan asked. Marcus sat up in bed, his eyes wide with alarm. "They're not just tracking us anymore," he said. "They're hunting us, and they're not alone." "What do you mean not alone?" Marcus and Storm connected again, and when Marcus opened his eyes, his expression was grim beyond his years. "There are other things out there, Dad. Other animals from other programs. The government isn't just trying to get Storm back. They're trying to clean up all their loose ends." "Other animals?" "Enhanced wolves from Project Alpha Pack, modified bears from something called Operation Grizzly Guard, and something else, something that Storm is really scared of." "What?" Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "Children, Dad. Enhanced children from a program called Project New Mind. They've been looking for Storm because they want to study how the neural link works so well with him." Ryan felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Enhanced children? Kids like me, but they were volunteers in the program. The government has been experimenting on children for years, trying to create human-animal neural links. But most of the children... Marcus's voice trailed off. "What happened to them?" "They died, Dad, or they went crazy. But there are 3 left, and they're coming here. They want to meet Storm and me." Before Ryan could ask what that meant, the sound of something large moving through the forest reached their ears. But it wasn't vehicles this time. It was something else, something that moved with purpose, an intelligence through the darkness. Storm positioned himself between Marcus and the door, his hackles raised and his eyes fixed on something beyond the cabin walls. "They're here," Marcus whispered. "The other enhanced children, and they're not coming to help us." Ryan grabbed the shotgun Elena had given him, but Marcus shook his head. "Guns won't work against them, Dad," he said quietly. "They're like Storm and me, but different, stronger, and they've been enhanced a lot longer." The footsteps outside the cabin stopped. Then, a voice called out from the darkness, a child's voice, but with an odd, artificial quality that made Ryan's skin crawl. "Hello, Marcus. Hello, Storm. We've been looking for you for a very long time." Marcus and Storm moved closer together, their connection so intense that the air around them seemed to shimmer. "Who are you?" Marcus called back. "We're your family," the voice replied. The only family you'll ever have now, because once you're enhanced, once you're connected, there's no going back to being normal. Ryan felt his heart break as he realized the truth. His son was no longer just Marcus. He was becoming something new, something that existed between human and animal consciousness, and now others like him were coming to claim him. The real horror was just beginning. 3 figures emerged from the forest darkness, moving with an unnatural coordination that made Ryan's blood run cold. They appeared to be children, but there was something fundamentally wrong about the way they moved, the way they held themselves. Each step was too precise, too calculated, as if they were following some invisible programming. The first was a girl who looked about 12, with blonde hair that seemed to glow in the moonlight. Her eyes reflected light like an animal's, and when she smiled, Ryan could see that her teeth were slightly pointed. The second was a boy, maybe 10 years old, but his movements suggested incredible strength. His arms hung at his sides, but Ryan could see the outline of muscles that shouldn't exist on a child's frame. The third figure made Ryan's heart stop completely. It was another boy, probably Marcus's age, but his eyes were completely black, not just the pupils, but the entire visible eye. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in Ryan's bones. "My name is Project 7, the black-eyed boy said. "These are Project 3 and Project 5. We are what you and Storm are becoming." Marcus stepped forward, Storm moving protectively beside him. Ryan could see that his son was trying to project confidence, but underneath, Marcus was terrified. "We don't want to become anything," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his fear. "We just want to be left alone." Project 3, the girl laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. "Left alone? You can never be left alone now. The connection you've formed with the animal has marked you. You belong to us now." "Belong to you?" Ryan stepped forward, raising the shotgun. "Stay away from my son." Project 5, the muscular boy, moved faster than Ryan's eyes could follow. One moment he was standing 20 feet away. The next, he was right in front of Ryan, his small hand wrapped around the barrel of the shotgun. The metal began to bend under his grip. "Human weapons are not effective against enhanced subjects," Project 5 said in a voice devoid of emotion. "Please do not make this more difficult than necessary." Storm suddenly erupted into action, launching himself at Project 5 with a speed that even surprised the enhanced boy. But instead of a normal dog attack, Storm's assault was coordinated and intelligent, targeting pressure points and weak spots like a trained fighter. Project 5 released the shotgun and engaged Storm in combat that was unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. The boy moved with inhuman speed and strength, but Storm seemed to anticipate every move, countering with precision that suggested tactical intelligence far beyond any normal animal. During the distraction, Marcus grabbed Ryan's hand. "We have to run," he whispered urgently. "Storm is buying us time, but he can't fight all 3 of them." But Project 7, the black-eyed boy, was already moving to cut off their escape. As he approached, Marcus suddenly screamed in pain, clutching his head. "The neural link makes you vulnerable," Project 7 said calmly. "I can access your connection with the animal and use it against you." Marcus fell to his knees, and Storm immediately broke off his fight with Project 5 to rush to the boy's side. But as soon as Storm touched Marcus, both of them cried out in unison. "Fascinating," Project 3 said, watching the display with clinical interest. "The bond is stronger than our initial assessment suggested. The pain feedback is nearly perfect." Ryan felt rage explode through his system. These weren't children anymore. They were weapons, and they were torturing his son. "Stop it!" Ryan shouted, rushing toward Project 7. But the black-eyed boy simply looked at him, and Ryan found himself frozen in place, unable to move or speak. "Your emotional response is noted but irrelevant," Project 7 said. "The subjects must be retrieved for further study." That's when something unexpected happened. Marcus and Storm, both still writhing in pain from whatever Project 7 was doing to them, suddenly looked at each other. Their eyes met, and Ryan saw a moment of perfect understanding pass between them. Marcus reached up and placed both hands on Storm's head. Instead of trying to resist the pain, they embraced it, shared it, and somehow transformed it into something else entirely. A wave of energy erupted from their connection, visible as a shimmering distortion in the air. The 3 enhanced children staggered backward, their own neural implants apparently overwhelmed by whatever Marcus and Storm had just done. "Impossible!" Project 3 gasped. "They're not just resisting the override. They're sending feedback through the network." Project 7's black eyes widened with what might have been fear. The bond is evolving. This was not anticipated. Ryan found himself able to move again. He rushed to Marcus's side, just as his son and Storm collapsed from exhaustion. "Marcus, are you okay?" Marcus looked up at his father, and Ryan saw that his son's eyes had changed. They weren't black like Project 7's, but they now contained flecks of amber that seemed to swirl and move. "I'm different now, Dad," Marcus said quietly. "We both are, but we're still us." Storm struggled to his feet, and Ryan could see that the dog had changed too. His fur seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and his movements carried an intelligence that was unmistakably more than canine. The three enhanced children were regrouping, but they looked uncertain now, as if their programming hadn't prepared them for this situation. "New parameters required," Project 5 said, speaking into some kind of communication device. "Subjects are exhibiting unprecedented neural evolution." A voice crackled back through the device, Agent Coleman's voice. "Contain them by any means necessary. The project cannot be compromised." Project 3 smiled, but it was a cold, predatory expression. "Authorization received, switching to termination protocols." Ryan felt his heart stop. These enhanced children had just been given permission to kill his son, but Marcus and Storm were ready. The connection between them had evolved during their confrontation with Project 7, and now they moved with perfect synchronization. Marcus pointed toward the forest, and Storm immediately began moving in that direction, not running, flowing like liquid shadow. "Follow Storm," Marcus said to Ryan. "He knows a way out." They ran into the forest, but it wasn't the desperate, panicked flight Ryan had expected. Storm led them along paths that seemed to materialize out of nowhere, routes that avoided obstacles and provided perfect cover from pursuit. Behind them, the enhanced children followed with mechanical persistence, but they were no longer moving with their earlier confidence. The feedback from Marcus and Storm's evolved connection had disrupted their own neural systems, leaving them disoriented and uncertain. "How are you doing this?" Ryan asked Marcus as they ran. "Storm is showing me the forest through his senses," Marcus explained, "but I'm showing him the forest through my mind. Together, we can see things that neither of us could see alone." They reached a stream that Ryan would have tried to cross, but Storm led them upstream instead, following the water for nearly a mile before finding a place where the bank was rocky enough to hide their scent. "The enhanced children use tracking implants similar to Storm's," Marcus said, "but their technology is older, more limited. Storm's implant has been learning, evolving. He can hide from their sensors now." They traveled through the forest for hours, following routes that seemed impossible for humans to navigate. But Storm guided them with supernatural precision, avoiding not just the enhanced children, but also the government search teams that were coordinating the hunt from multiple directions. Just before dawn, they reached an old mining camp deep in the mountains. The buildings were abandoned and partially collapsed, but one cabin still had a solid roof and walls. "We'll be safe here for a while," Marcus said, settling down next to Storm. "But Dad, we can't keep running forever." Ryan looked at his son, trying to process everything that had happened. Marcus was still recognizably his child, but the changes were becoming more pronounced. The amber flecks in his eyes were brighter now, and when he spoke, there was an authority in his voice that hadn't been there before. "What do you mean?" Ryan asked. Marcus and Storm shared one of their moments of connection, and when Marcus opened his eyes, his expression was grim. "The government isn't just hunting us," he said. "They're preparing to activate something called the Neural Reset Protocol. It's designed to shut down all neural implants simultaneously." "That sounds like a good thing," Ryan said hopefully. "No, Dad, it would kill Storm instantly, and because we're connected now, it would probably kill me too." Ryan felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "How long do we have?" Storm isn't sure. Maybe days, maybe hours. But when they activate the protocol, every enhanced animal and every enhanced child in the program will die. "Including the 3 that were chasing us?" "Including them," Marcus confirmed. "The government has decided that the entire program is too dangerous to continue. They're going to eliminate all the evidence." Ryan sank down onto a broken chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were facing. "What can we do?" Marcus stood up and walked to the cabin's single window, looking out at the forest. Storm joined him, and together they stood silhouetted against the morning light. "Storm says there's only one way to stop the neural reset protocol," Marcus said. "We have to get to the facility where it's being controlled and shut it down ourselves." "That's impossible. We don't even know where the facility is." Marcus turned to look at his father, and Ryan saw something in his son's eyes that made his breath catch. It was determination, but not the kind that belonged to a 5-year-old child. "Storm knows where it is," Marcus said. "He has access to data streams from his time in the program. The facility is hidden inside a mountain in Colorado, about 300 miles from here." "Even if we could get there," Ryan said desperately, "we're just one man, one boy, and one dog. What could we possibly do against a government facility?" "We're not alone anymore, Dad," Marcus said quietly. "Storm has been communicating with other enhanced animals across the country. The ones that escaped, the ones that are still alive. They're all going to converge on the facility." "You're talking about some kind of coordinated attack?" "I'm talking about survival," Marcus said. "If we don't stop the neural reset protocol, everyone like Storm and me will die. All the enhanced animals, all the enhanced children, everyone the government created and then decided to throw away." Ryan looked at his son and realized that Marcus was no longer just a child caught up in circumstances beyond his control. The neural link with Storm had changed him, given him knowledge and capabilities that Ryan could barely comprehend. But underneath the enhanced intelligence and the supernatural connection, Marcus was still his son. Still the quiet, sensitive boy who had found a wounded dog in a shipping container and refused to let anyone hurt him. "What do you need me to do?" Ryan asked. Marcus smiled, and for a moment, he looked exactly like the 5-year-old Ryan remembered. "Help us get to Colorado, Dad, and trust us to do what we have to do." As they prepared to leave the mining camp, Ryan caught a glimpse of movement in the forest. For a moment, he thought it might be the enhanced children, but then he saw what Marcus and Storm had already sensed. Animals. Dozens of them, moving through the trees with purpose and intelligence that was clearly more than natural. Enhanced wolves, their eyes glowing with inner light. A massive bear that moved with impossible grace and coordination. Even smaller animals, foxes, ravens, and others that had obviously been part of various government programs. They were all converging on the mining camp, drawn by Storm's call for help. "My God," Ryan whispered. "How many programs were there?" "More than anyone knows," Marcus said. "The government has been experimenting on animals for decades. Most of the subjects died or went insane, but some survived, some escaped, and now they're all coming together." The enhanced animals gathered in the clearing around the mining camp, but they didn't approach. Instead, they waited, watching Marcus and Storm with obvious respect and anticipation. "They're waiting for orders," Ryan realized. "Not orders," Marcus corrected. "They're waiting for leadership. Storm is the most successfully enhanced animal the government ever created. The others see him as their alpha." Ryan watched in amazement as Storm moved among the assembled animals, somehow communicating with each species in ways that transcended normal animal behavior. The wolves, the bear, the smaller creatures, they all responded to Storm with intelligence and purpose. "This is an army," Ryan said in wonder. "This is family," Marcus corrected. "They're all outcasts like Storm and me. The government created them, used them, and then tried to destroy them, but they survived, and now they're going to fight back." As the enhanced animals began to move out, heading south toward Colorado, Ryan felt a mixture of pride and terror. His son was leading a revolution of enhanced beings against the very government that had created them. But Marcus was still just 5 years old, connected to a dog who had been tortured and experimented on by people who saw them as nothing more than assets to be managed or eliminated. The final confrontation was coming, and Ryan wasn't sure any of them would survive it. But as he watched Marcus and Storm leading their impossible army through the forest, Ryan realized that survival might not be the point anymore. The point was to ensure that no other children, no other animals, would ever be subjected to the horrors of programs like Mindbridge again. The war for the enhanced had begun, and it would determine the fate of every being that the government had twisted into something beyond nature's design. The journey to Colorado took 3 days, but it felt like a lifetime. Ryan watched in amazement as Marcus and Storm coordinated their army of enhanced animals with tactical precision that would have impressed military commanders. The wolves scouted ahead, the ravens provided aerial reconnaissance, and the bear served as heavy support for any obstacles they encountered. But it was more than just coordination. Ryan began to understand that Marcus and Storm weren't just leading these animals. They were connected to all of them through an expanding neural network that grew stronger with each passing hour. "It's like a web," Marcus explained during one of their rest stops. "Storm can feel what the wolves are feeling, and I can feel what Storm is feeling. All of their senses, all of their knowledge, it's all connected now." Ryan watched his son interface with animals that should have been wild and dangerous, but instead treated Marcus with the reverence usually reserved for pack leaders or alpha wolves. "How far does this connection extend?" Ryan asked. Marcus tilted his head, as if listening to something Ryan couldn't hear. "Farther than we thought. Storm says there are enhanced animals all over the world, not just in America. Some of them are trying to connect with us from as far away as Russia and China." "Other countries have programs like this too?" "Had programs," Marcus corrected. "Most of them were shut down after the subjects became too powerful to control. But the enhanced animals that survived, they're all feeling the call now. Some of them are trying to get to us." As they traveled, Ryan began to notice changes in the landscape itself. Animals that shouldn't have been cooperating were working together. Normal deer were traveling alongside the enhanced wolves. Regular birds were flying in formation with the enhanced ravens. It was as if Marcus and Storm's neural network was expanding beyond just the enhanced subjects to include the natural world around them. "Is this supposed to happen?" Ryan asked Elena during one of her check-in calls. "Nothing about this is supposed to happen," Elena replied, her voice tight with worry. "The original MindBridge technology was designed for simple communication between handler and animal. What Marcus and Storm have created is something entirely new. A collective consciousness that bridges the gap between human and animal intelligence." "Is it dangerous?" "I don't know," Elena admitted, "but I can tell you that the government is terrified. They've classified Marcus and Storm as a level 5 existential threat." "What does that mean?" "It means they consider them more dangerous than nuclear weapons." That night, as they camped in a hidden valley just 50 miles from the Colorado facility, Marcus had what could only be described as a revelation. He and Storm sat together in the center of their animal army, both of them perfectly still for over an hour. When they finally opened their eyes, Marcus looked directly at Ryan with an expression that was both his 5-year-old son and something far older and wiser. "Dad, we know what we have to do," Marcus said, "but you're not going to like it. Tell me." "The neural reset protocol isn't just designed to kill the enhanced subjects," Marcus explained. "It's designed to destroy the neural link technology itself. If we let them activate it, no one will ever be able to form the kind of connection that Storm and I have." "That doesn't sound like a bad thing," Ryan said carefully. Marcus shook his head. "You don't understand. This connection, this ability to bridge human and animal consciousness, it's not just a weapon. It's evolution, Dad. It's the next step for both species." Ryan felt a chill of fear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that Storm and I aren't just trying to save ourselves. We're trying to save the future of communication between humans and animals. If the government destroys this technology, people will never understand animals the way I understand Storm." Storm moved closer to Marcus, and Ryan could see the bond between them pulsing like a visible energy field. "But to save the technology," Marcus continued, "we have to do something that will change everything. We have to connect the neural network to the internet." Ryan's blood turned to ice. "What?" "The facility in Colorado isn't just a control center for the neural reset protocol," Marcus explained. "It's also connected to every major communication network in the world. If we can link our neural network to those systems, we can spread the connection technology globally." "You're talking about connecting every computer in the world to your animal network." "I'm talking about giving every human the ability to communicate with animals the way Storm and I communicate with each other," Marcus said. "No more animal abuse, no more experimentation, no more treating animals like they're just property. True understanding between species." Ryan stared at his son in horror. "Marcus, that would change the entire world." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "It would." That night, Ryan lay awake staring at the stars, trying to process what his son was planning. It wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was a plan to fundamentally alter human civilization. But as he watched Marcus sleeping peacefully next to Storm, surrounded by their army of enhanced animals, Ryan realized that maybe fundamental change was exactly what the world needed. The next morning brought unwelcome news. Elena called with a report that made everyone's blood run cold. The government has moved up their timeline, she said. They're activating the neural reset protocol in 18 hours. And Ryan, they've also authorized the use of tactical nuclear weapons against any location where enhanced subjects are gathering. Ryan felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Nuclear weapons? They're that scared of what Marcus and Storm represent, Elena said grimly. They'd rather destroy an entire mountainside than risk the neural network technology spreading. Marcus and Storm shared one of their intense connection moments, and when they opened their eyes, both of them looked grim. "We have to move now," Marcus said. "The facility is heavily defended, but Storm has found a weakness in their security systems." "What kind of weakness?" "The facility uses enhanced dogs for security," Marcus explained. "But all of those dogs still have the original neural implants. Storm can connect to them and turn them against their handlers." As they approached the facility, Ryan could see why the government considered it impregnable. The entire complex was built into the side of a mountain, with multiple layers of fencing, automated defense systems, and what looked like a small army of soldiers patrolling the perimeter. But Marcus and Storm had advantages that the facility's designers had never anticipated. The enhanced wolves moved like ghosts through the forest, avoiding sensors and cameras with supernatural precision. The ravens provided real-time intelligence about guard positions and patrol patterns, and Storm himself was able to interface with the facility's own security systems through the neural implants of the guard dogs. "Phase 1 is simple," Marcus explained as they crouched behind a ridge overlooking the facility. "Storm connects to the security dogs and turns them against their handlers. That creates confusion and draws attention away from the main entrance." "Phase 2?" Ryan asked. "The enhanced bear breaks through the main gate while the wolves create diversions at the secondary entrances. During the chaos, Storm and I slip into the facility and make our way to the central computer core." "Phase 3? Marcus looked at his father with those amber-flecked eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. "We connect our neural network to the internet and change the world forever." Ryan felt his heart break as he realized that his 5-year-old son was planning an operation that would either save or destroy human civilization. "What about me?" Ryan asked. "What's my role in all this?" Marcus reached out and took his father's hand. "Your job is to trust us, Dad, and to help us. Remember who we were before all this started." As the sun set behind the mountains, the assault on the facility began. It was unlike any military operation Ryan had ever imagined. The enhanced animals moved with perfect coordination, each species playing to their strengths in a symphony of controlled chaos. The wolves struck first, slipping through gaps in the perimeter fencing and taking out guard posts with silent efficiency. The ravens dive-bombed communication arrays, disrupting the facility's ability to call for reinforcements. And Storm, from his position on the ridge, began connecting to the minds of every guard dog in the complex. The effect was immediate and devastating. Dogs that had been trained to attack intruders suddenly turned on their handlers, creating panic and confusion throughout the facility. Alarms began blaring, but the security forces couldn't coordinate their response because their own animals were working against them. "Now," Marcus said, and he and Storm began moving down the mountainside toward the facility's main entrance. Ryan followed, his heart pounding with terror and pride as he watched his son lead an impossible mission with the confidence of a seasoned commander. The main gate exploded inward as the enhanced bear, a creature that stood nearly 9 feet tall and moved with impossible speed, smashed through reinforced steel like it was paper. Soldiers opened fire, but their bullets seemed to have little effect on the bear's enhanced physiology. Through the gap in the gate, Marcus and Storm slipped into the facility like shadows. Ryan tried to follow, but a soldier spotted him and raised his weapon. Before the man could fire, one of the facility's own guard dogs, now under Storm's control, leaped onto the soldier from behind. The man went down, and Ryan kept moving. Inside the facility, the corridors were filled with chaos. Enhanced animals were everywhere, but they moved with purpose, following Storm's mental commands to create maximum disruption while avoiding civilian casualties. "The computer core is 3 levels down," Marcus said, leading Ryan through a maze of corridors that he somehow knew by heart. "Storm is downloading the facility's layout directly from the security system." They reached an elevator just as Agent Coleman appeared at the far end of the corridor, flanked by a squad of soldiers in full combat gear. "Stop!" Coleman shouted. "You're destroying everything we've worked for." Marcus turned to face the agent, and Ryan saw something in his son's eyes that made his breath catch. It wasn't anger or fear, it was pity. "You worked for nothing," Marcus said, his young voice carrying impossible authority. "You tried to turn animals into weapons, but you created something beautiful instead. You tried to control evolution, but evolution can't be controlled." Coleman raised his sidearm, aiming directly at Marcus. "I won't let you destroy human civilization." "We're not destroying it," Marcus said, calmly. "We're improving it." Before Coleman could pull the trigger, Storm appeared behind him like a shadow made solid. The agent went down without a sound, unconscious but unharmed. "Storm doesn't like to hurt people," Marcus explained as they entered the elevator, "but he'll do whatever it takes to protect our mission." The computer core was a vast chamber filled with servers and processing equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. At the center of the room sat a single terminal that Ryan immediately recognized as the control point for the neural reset protocol. "This is it," Marcus said, approaching the terminal with Storm at his side. "Dad, I need you to know that whatever happens next, I'm still your son. The connection with Storm hasn't changed who I am. It's just made me more than I was before." Ryan felt tears streaming down his face. "I know, Marcus. I'm proud of you." Marcus and Storm placed their hands and paws on the terminal simultaneously. Immediately, screens throughout the chamber began lighting up with data streams and connection patterns that looked like a vast neural network spreading across the globe. "We're in," Marcus said, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonated with Storm's consciousness. "Beginning global network integration." Ryan watched in amazement as maps appeared on the screens, showing connection nodes spreading across every continent. In laboratories and facilities around the world, enhanced animals that had been hidden or forgotten were suddenly awakening to the call of the neural network. But more than that, Ryan could see that normal animals were beginning to respond as well. Pets in homes across America were suddenly looking at their owners with new intelligence and understanding. Zoo animals were attempting to communicate with their keepers. Wild animals were approaching human settlements with curiosity instead of fear. "My God," Ryan whispered, "you're connecting every animal on Earth." "Not just animals," Marcus said, his eyes now glowing with the same amber light as Storm's. "Humans too, anyone who's willing to open their mind to the connection." On the screens, Ryan could see reports flooding in from around the world. Children with autism were suddenly speaking for the first time, their minds opened by the neural network. Veterinarians were reporting that they could suddenly understand their patients with perfect clarity. Even normal adults were beginning to sense the emotions and needs of the animals around them. "It's beautiful," Ryan said, watching humanity take its first steps toward true interspecies communication. But then alarms began blaring throughout the facility. On the screens, Ryan could see government forces converging on their location from multiple directions. Worse, satellite feeds showed military aircraft approaching with payloads that could only be nuclear weapons. "They're going to destroy the entire facility," Ryan said in horror. Marcus and Storm never broke their connection with the terminal, but Marcus spoke with calm certainty. "Let them come. The network is already spreading too fast for them to stop. Even if they destroy us, the connection will continue growing." Ryan felt his heart break as he realized that his son was prepared to die for this mission. "Marcus, we need to get out of here." "No, Dad," Marcus said gently. "Storm and I need to stay connected until the network is fully established, but you should go. You should live to see the world we're creating." Before Ryan could argue, the facility shook with the impact of explosive charges. Government forces were blasting their way through the levels above, racing to reach the computer core before the nuclear strike arrived. 60 seconds until network integration is complete, Marcus reported, his consciousness now so intertwined with Storm's that they spoke in perfect unison. The chamber doors exploded inward and dozens of soldiers poured in with weapons raised. But they stopped short when they saw what was happening on the screens around them. All over the world, the neural network was coming online. Human children were communicating with pets and wild animals. Scientists were suddenly able to understand the complex social structures of animal communities. Even the soldiers in the chamber were beginning to feel the pull of the network, their enhanced military dogs turning to look at them with new intelligence and understanding. 30 seconds, Marcus and Storm announced together. Agent Coleman stumbled into the chamber, bleeding from his encounter with Storm, but still determined to stop the network activation. "You don't understand what you're doing," he shouted. "Human civilization depends on our ability to control and manage animal populations. If every animal becomes intelligent, if every human can communicate with them, society will collapse." Marcus and Storm turned to look at him, their consciousness now so merged that Ryan could no longer tell where his son ended and the dog began. "Society won't collapse," they said in unison. "It will evolve. Humans and animals will finally understand each other. There will be no more cruelty, no more experimentation, no more treating conscious beings like property." 10 seconds, they announced. Coleman raised his weapon, but this time it was Ryan who stopped him. Ryan tackled the agent, sending them both crashing to the floor. "My son is saving the world," Ryan said through gritted teeth. "I won't let you stop him." "Network integration complete," Marcus and Storm announced together. Every screen in the chamber went white for a moment, then filled with images from around the globe. Ryan could see children playing with animals that now responded to their thoughts and emotions. He could see scientists working alongside enhanced dolphins to solve problems that had puzzled humanity for decades. He could see farmers whose livestock were helping them optimize crop yields through sophisticated communication. But most importantly, Ryan could see a world where the barrier between human and animal consciousness had finally been broken down, replaced by understanding and cooperation. Marcus and Storm finally stepped back from the terminal, their connection to the global network established but no longer requiring direct interface. Marcus looked at his father with eyes that held wisdom far beyond his years, but also held the same love and trust that Ryan had always seen there. "We did it, Dad," Marcus said, his voice now his own again, though still carrying traces of his connection with Storm. "We changed everything." Ryan picked up his son and held him tight, feeling Storm press against both of them in what could only be described as a group hug. Around them, the soldiers were lowering their weapons, their own connections to the network, allowing them to finally understand what Marcus and Storm had accomplished. "Sir," one of the soldiers said to Coleman, "my dog is talking to me, actually talking. He's telling me about his training, about how scared he was, about how much he wants to help people instead of hurt them." Coleman looked around the chamber in defeat. The nuclear strike had been called off when military commanders realized that destroying the facility would accomplish nothing. The network was already global and self-sustaining. "What have you done?" Coleman asked quietly. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in days, he looked exactly like the 5-year-old boy Ryan remembered. "We made friends with everyone," Marcus said simply. 6 months later, Ryan sat in his backyard watching Marcus play with Storm and a group of neighborhood children and their pets. The world had indeed changed, but not in the catastrophic way the government had feared. Crime rates had plummeted as humans gained the ability to sense the emotional states of those around them through their connections with animals. Environmental protection had become a global priority as people could finally understand the impact of pollution and habitat destruction through the eyes of the creatures who lived it every day. Medical breakthroughs were happening weekly as enhanced animals shared their unique sensory abilities with human researchers. Art and music had evolved to incorporate the perspectives of multiple species, creating beauty that no single consciousness could have imagined. Marcus was still his son, still curious, still gentle, still 5 years old in many ways. But he was also something more, a bridge between human and animal consciousness that had opened doors for all of humanity. Storm had become something of a celebrity, but he seemed most content when he was simply being a dog, playing fetch with Marcus or sleeping in the sun. "Do you ever regret it?" Ryan asked his son one evening as they watched the sunset. "Giving up your normal childhood to change the world?" Marcus considered the question seriously, his amber-flecked eyes thoughtful. "I never had a normal childhood, Dad," he said finally. "I couldn't talk to people the way other kids could. But now I can talk to everyone. Humans, animals, even plants sometimes when the connection is really strong. Storm rested his head on Marcus's lap, and Ryan could see the love and contentment that flowed between them. Besides, Marcus added with a grin, Storm says that normal is overrated. He likes being special, and he likes that I'm special too. As night fell over their neighborhood, Ryan listened to the sounds of a world that had been transformed by his son's courage and a dog's love. Children laughing as they played games that incorporated the perspectives of multiple species. Adults having conversations with their pets that went far beyond simple commands and responses. Even the local wildlife had become more interactive, with birds and squirrels approaching humans with curiosity rather than fear. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still people who resisted the changes, but it was a world where understanding had replaced fear, where cooperation had replaced domination, and it had all started with a 5-year-old boy who found a wounded dog in a shipping container and refused to let anyone hurt him. As Ryan tucked Marcus into bed that night, with Storm curled up at the foot of the bed like any normal dog, he marveled at how far they had come. "I love you, buddy," Ryan said, kissing his son's forehead. "I love you too, Dad," Marcus replied, "and Storm says he loves you for taking care of us." Ryan smiled, finally able to sense the warmth and gratitude that radiated from the dog who had become his son's partner in changing the world. "Tell Storm he's welcome," Ryan said, "and that I'm proud to be part of this family." As he turned off the lights, Ryan heard Marcus whisper to Storm in the language that only they shared, a communication that bridged the gap between human and animal consciousness, and had given the world a gift that would last forever. The story of the boy and the dog who changed everything was just beginning, and their legacy would inspire countless others to forge connections that transcended the boundaries between species. In the end, love had proven more powerful than fear, understanding more valuable than control, and the bond between a child and his dog strong enough to transform the entire world. Like, share, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from, because this story of hope and transformation needs to be heard by everyone who believes that love can overcome even the darkest circumstances.